What's going on, ladies and gentlemen of the nation? Sly here, and once again, thank you all for checking out another Mass Effect Andromeda latest news video. Now, there is a lot to talk about, and the excitement and hype is definitely starting to build. Speaking of exciting, we only have 20 days left until Andromeda releases. That's less than 3 weeks, guys. More so than that, early access becomes available in exactly 2 weeks from today. 2 freaking weeks. All this waiting, all the suspense, all the way down from E3 2015 to E3 2016, the teasers, trailers, tweets, all of it is finally coming to a head, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. So as usual, this video contains the latest news from the past week. Last weekend's latest news video can be found in the description box below if you wish to check that out if you missed it. However, a lot has happened since the last video. Tons of amazingly great things, and also one terrible thing. Alright, so let's start it up. First things first, Mass Effect Andromeda has officially gone gold. So congratulations to everyone working at BioWare and everyone working on Mass Effect Andromeda. I cannot wait to play this game. And for those out there who don't know what that means, going gold is development lingo for completing the game. Everything is finished 100% and it's off to retailers. Now there will be a day one patch implemented and everyone has to download it before they can access the game. Usually day one patches, are just that, a downloadable file that corrects last minute bugs, tweaked performances, frame rates, connectivity, and tons of other things like that. And as the name says, you're supposed to download it on release day. However, the devs are working to have Mass Effect Andromeda's Day 1 patch ready for download by the time early access is open. So that's a week before release, and I'm absolutely ready for it. Alright, so as we all know, last week Thursday the media embargo was lifted. I did a rundown of all the media reviews and a breakdown of all the new information I found out in this video right here. Now you can check that out down below as well if you want to watch it. It's pretty interesting, names of all the other arcs, Quarians, skills, profiles, hidden things inside the Tempest, and much, much more. But more so than that, we get a good idea of what the game will actually be like, and reviews from sources that we trust. Now, we all have sources we like better than others, and the great thing about it is that they all pretty much said the exact same thing. Besides some pre-release bugs, the game looked fantastic. Graphics, dialogue, art style, music, powers, all were impressive. And it actually felt like a Mass Effect game, which is exactly all I needed to hear. Now, more so than that, a select few media outlets were given the chance to play even further. IGN released a video a few days ago showing 17 minutes of uninterrupted gameplay. It is definitely worth a watch. The link is also in the description box below, as well as my breakdown video if you want to watch that as well. There are some slow moments in there, I can promise you that, but it does give us a closer look at a few new skills, some weapons, and a look at 2, maybe even 3 new characters. However, that was not the entire mission. The mission extends much further after the IGN vid ends. And also, if you're wondering about squad engagement, banter direction, stuff like that, dialogue was cut out to avoid spoilers. So if it seemed a bit off at times, there's a lot of context that we're missing. So fear not. Also, if you were wondering, Drac is not tied to this mission. At the beginning, this cutscene shows Drac and Ryder walking into PB's bunk aboard the Tempest, which just so happens to be the escape pod. But according to one of the devs, you can pick any team member you wish before the cutscene happens and the mission begins. Now, I saw a lot of tweets on Twitter. Everyone was scared that you had to pick Drac for this mission because of the way the cutscene was. Don't worry, it is not like that. Alright, so next up, for the PC players out there, specs have finally been released. After many soons, the specs were posted on Origin around the same time the embargo was lifted. As you can see here, minimum requirements for the major parts are a CPU that's least an i5-3570 or an AMD FX 6350. Now as far as graphics cards, minimum's a GTX 660 or a Radeon 7850. However, those are min specs, which means you'll have severely reduced quality and more than likely will only be able to play on maybe low to medium with some settings probably turned off. Recommended specs, of course, are at least an i7-4790 or an FX 8350. And of course, a new Ryzen CPU wouldn't hurt. I'm sure that'll be able to handle it. By the way, I want one. And as far as recommended GPUs, a GTX 1060 3 gigs or an RX 480 with 4 gigs, and at least 55 gigs on your hard drive. Also this week, we've had a variety of new characters pop up. The first of which is a Solarian politician named Jarun Tann. He's voiced by a man named Kumal Nanjiani, and there's a small interview of him as well as some clips of his character, which you can see here in the background. Now, it's an official BioWare interview, so it's up on their YouTube channel if you want to check it out, and of course the link is down below. The next two characters have only popped up briefly with not much background tied to them, and the third is sort of a mystery. The first is an Asari named Kalinda. She's shown to be PB's rival within the game, and from the dialogue, it seems that she is a pain in the ass for quite some time. Here's a small clip. Take a look.
Oh, I know that shuttle.
Helisaria, are you tracking that sweet signal too?
Ugh, Kalinda, back off. It's mine. Let's hurry. We have to get to the signal source before Kalinda.
Next, we have a Krogan outlaw named Kranit, which by the way kind of reminds me of this old Sesame Street video called Sesame Street on Drugs. It came out like 10 years ago. It was like, Big Bird, you just called me Kramit. Anyways, according to the video, you encounter this dude a couple of different times. So Kalinda and Kranit are characters you will see a few times throughout the gameplay. Alright, and finally we come to the last new character this week, a mysterious one named Pax. Now, I'm not quite sure who or what Pax is, but if you watch the IGN video or my breakdown, Ryder talks about this docile remnant creature and references its state similar to that of Pax. They stripped out the remnant programming, and since the remnant are reprogrammable, it looks like we might have a remnant ally somewhere in the game. And my guess is that it stays on the Tempest, as later on in the video, Kalinda, PB's rival, confesses to stashing a tracking bug within Pax. So if that led her there, then it must be on the Tempest. Now, who or what Pax really is isn't unknown at this point, but it's all speculation as of right now. Although it sounds pretty enticing, and I cannot wait to discover what that's all about.
Interesting. That observer is in a persistent idle state. Its neural pathways are blank.
It's like Pax when I stripped out its remnant protocols. It has no programming.
Also, while all of these videos were being released by different media sources as well as articles, the official Mass Effect website released another Andromeda Initiative trailer. This time it talks about weapons and biotics, and it's narrated by Liam. Definitely worth a look. And as always, the link is down below as well as my breakdown video of that. Alright, so next up, let's get some bad news out of the way, guys. I'm just going to go ahead and spill it. There will be no Mass Effect Andromeda beta or multiplayer tech test, however you want to call it. After months of signups at BioWare Beacon and tons of soon tweets, they finally broke the ice on their BioWare blog dealing with Pax East, which happens to be next week, the weekend of March 10th. As you can see right here, quote, while we will have live multiplayer at Pax East, there will no longer be a multiplayer tech test for players at home. Thank you to everyone who signed up. We look forward to seeing you in Andromeda, end quote. Now, unfortunately, I missed out on buying PAX tickets this year, so I will not be able to cover multiplayer from the showroom floor, which makes me kind of sadly. Although, if you are going to PAX, then you're going to be in for a treat. However, if you're like me and not going, then BioWare does plan to broadcast it from the showroom floor. It will be on Twitch. Make sure you follow Mass Effect on Twitter or myself, and the time will be sent out when I know more. As you can see right here, they haven't confirmed whether or not they will be live streaming multiplayer or single player, maybe even perhaps both. So time will tell. Alright, and while we're on multiplayer, I have quite a few tidbits of information related to that. So first off, the reason they canceled the MEA beta was because of a program called Game Changers. It's a group of beta testers, and on top of that, they had a closed alpha earlier in the year, which I had no idea happened. So they definitely kept that under wraps. BioWare has said that their multiplayer portion has had extensive testing and they are confident in it. So I guess like everything else, we're going to have to wait and see. Still no word on what the difference is between the Apex Force multiplayer missions and the normal ME3 Horde mode. But I did ask a few devs, so let's see if they respond. Alright, so let's dig into some multiplayer detail. First things first, they are still operating on peer-to-peer connections. And since this has nothing to do with PvP, that should not be that big of a deal. Next, we have a new screenshot of what multiplayer interface will look like. You can see here on the left all of the characters that you can pick. Now notice the scroll bar on the left, so there are quite a few characters to pick from. A lot of them you can't even see. Also on the top left, you'll see an Apex rating. Not sure what that does, but like every other screenshot, we usually get more questions than answers. Now on the right, we have the usual details like health, level, class, stuff like that. And looking at all the characters on the left, you can actually see the level below each profile picture. And from this tweet here, we know that they are arranged by rarity. As you can see from the character they selected here, it's a common character and it's at the very top. And they have common classes just like weapons. You can see a bronze circle around the character's picture. Scrolling down to the fourth line, you see silver circles representing uncommon, and then the last two of the Krogan and the Turian, you can see gold rings around them indicating rare. Now the only other rarity we've seen for sure is ultra rare, and that's red. And with the scroll bar that small and that much space, it looks like there's going to be a ton of characters to choose from. Also, within each rarity, multiplayer creators are separated by class and type, like Soldier, Vanguard, Engineer, etc. Also, you can see at the bottom of this picture, you can customize your character's armor with patterns and colors. However, if your character has a helmet, it stays on as part of the overall look and it cannot be taken off unless you select one that has no helmet in the first place. Also, the 6 base kits are present, but there are also unique human ones as well. And as you can tell right here, kits can now rank up independently instead of sharing a class level across the board like it did in ME3. So that's also something pretty new. Now, one cool thing I found on Twitter is that every single character in multiplayer has their own voice actor and personality. Now, they didn't say how many there were in total, but as we can tell from the screenshot, there are quite a few. The last thing the dev talked about were a few quote-unquote secrets further down the list. That he's not talking about, of course, so another one we'll have to find out for ourselves, or maybe we'll get lucky and see it at PAX. Now, even though PAX will be our first look at multiplayer, Early Access will also be able to play it, and unfortunately, the 10 hours of trial time counts as single player and multiplayer as well. And finally, there will be no crafting within multiplayer. However, there are rewards that carry over from single player. And from what it looks like right here, another trailer or briefing called Strike Team Systems will answer that when the time comes. Alright, next let's hit up the portion of the video where we go over some of the random tidbits off of Twitter, as well as other stuff that doesn't really fit anywhere else. And I'll start off with the most exciting piece of information, and I also mentioned this in my Media Embargo breakdown video. It has to do with Quarians. Eurogamer had some one-on-one time with an MEA dev, Fabrice Condominas, and while they were playing the game, Eurogamer asked Fabrice where the Quarians were at, and he replied, quote, "You should look for them, but I can't answer. If you're really interested to know what happened to the Quarians, where they are, be careful of the choices you make and pay attention," end quote. So that's a big hint that they are indeed somewhere in the game, hidden throughout layers of story. Also, when another dev was asked about Quarian classes, he replied that some things are best left to be discovered. And moving along here, turns out there's a messaging board inside the Tempest where crew members can leave notes for you and each other. While many reviewers speculated this is how side quests can be gained, at the time, all they squad used it for was to talk about how they hated other members of the team. So I thought that was pretty funny. Also, some good news, model ships are coming back as well. And you'll feel right at home like you never left the Normandy. And apparently there are a few Easter eggs on the ship as well. I'll not spoil it for you, but from what I read, make sure you guys have a good look around. Next up, naked aliens. Now apparently Andromeda had its label changed from partial nudity to straight up full nudity, which as you could have probably guessed by now attracted some attention. So let's see how good Frostbite really is. Alright, next a quick tour of the dialogue wheel. Now we know what the different responses are within the wheel, but not their location or the subtlety on progressing conversations. This tweet right here clarifies things a little bit better. Bottom left is casual, bottom right professional, top left is emotional, and top right is logical. And of course the impulse actions replace the left or right mouse or trigger action, which signaled a renegade or paragon move. Also, in previous Mass Effects, the dialogue wheel was set up that basically anything on the left side was investigating or learning more about that particular spot in the conversation, and then answers would be on the right to move the conversation forward. Now, anything that isn't an investigate line will move the convo forward regardless of position. Alright guys, we're almost at the end. Moving on to the last couple things I have here, first of which are side quests. If you watched my IGN breakdown video, then you might remember this, but it turns out that just about every mission, besides the one related to the critical path, will be available after you complete the main campaign. loyalty missions, side quests, exploration, the works. You can finish them while advancing the critical path, but even if you rush through it all, you can still go back and play the rest of the game without worrying that you might have been locked out of something. Alright, next let's dive into a quick romance tweet. So one thing I always wanted to do in Mass Effect was to romance characters off of the ship. Characters like, Gianna Paracini from Novaria, or maybe even Shiala from Zoo's Hope. The problem is that you couldn't. Well, that will now change, as you can see right here. It is possible to romance others from outside of your crew. Not only is this awesome, but completely new for the series. And finally, have you ever started up a mission deep in the game and you were nervous this might be the end, but you don't want to do it because you still have a ton of side quests left to do? Although you end up launching it anyway to find out you actually just beat the game and now you're screwed. Well, even though Andromeda missions are playable whenever, there will be a clearly stated warning that you reach the final mission. So that's always good news. Alright, that's it guys. This past week has been packed with information, and if you want to learn more, definitely check out my breakdown videos, which are all listed below as well as the originals. Both have tons of good info in there, and they're always worth a watch. Anyways, before we go, take a look at this picture right here. Now remember the briefing video with Avina as the narrator? Well, look who they threw right into the middle of the video. Cora and Vetra. Now, of course, we didn't know what they looked like at the time, but they were right there in front of our faces the entire time. And of course, when asked about it, he replied, "What else could we have hidden in plain sight?" Oh man. Anyways, one last thing, preloads have also begun in certain countries, and depending on how you bought it. Early access is also preloading, so if you see tweets like these, don't worry, no one's getting on early. It's a simple preload, nothing more. Alright guys, now that is really it. As always, thank you all so much for watching. It's always a pleasure to create videos for you all, and I cannot thank you guys enough for the support that you've shown me. We are almost there, guys. Just a few more weeks, and I cannot wait to see what multiplayer looks like at PAX. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a fantastic weekend, and also, if you want to stay in the know, anywhere you go, follow me on Twitter @SlyNation or on Facebook @SlyNationGaming. It's the best place to get breaking news as well as YouTube uploads the instant they hit my channel. Keep an eye out for more videos dropping out of Sly Nation here very soon, but until then, this is your boy Sly, and I'll catch you all in the next vid. Later, guys.
Yeah.